The Void, Series 1, Episode 2. Who the hell is Buck Rogers? Chapter 5. Carter rose to consciousness again, slowly emerging from a dreamless sleep with a foggy head. His eyes opened but could barely focus at first. He could see he was in another comfortable-looking hospital room, although this one looked more like a full apartment. There was no one in the immediate vicinity, and the room was serenely quiet. For a little while he felt quite content, but then his head started to clear, and his priorities started to re-emerge. "Karen!" he exclaimed. He immediately started to try and move himself into an upright position, but this proved to be exceptionally difficult. His body just did not want to obey his mental commands. He flopped around like a beached fish as he struggled to gain any kind of leverage. It was at this point that someone entered the room and moved to the bottom of the bed he was thrashing around in. "Ah, Mr. Vincent, it's good to see you are awake." Carter paused for a moment. "I can understand you." It occurred to him for a moment that his previous experience had been a hallucination brought on by delirium. That seemed a reasonable assumption, but then he was awake and in the same state as his previous bout of consciousness. "That's good. It seems your brain has been able to interface properly with the Babel implant." "Do what now? What's this Babel thing everyone keeps mentioning?" "It's a neural implant that interfaces directly with your brain to translate languages from one form to another. It works on all levels, translating written text as well as spoken. It does take a little while to process new language types, though, which is why we were all having trouble understanding each other last time." "Hold on. You put some kind of cybernetic implant in my head. You can't just do that without my permission." "I'm afraid it was a bit of an emergency decision, as we knew communication was going to be a big issue. If you wish it to be removed, we can easily do that at a later date, but for now it is a necessity." "I've got a few other questions as well," Carter added. "First and foremost, where the hell is my family?" "That's a bit of a complicated issue." "No, it isn't. Where are they?" "I'm afraid I'll have to leave that one with Dr. Takuma and Dr. Richt." He recognized the second name. "Are those the two doctors that were talking gibberish at me?" "They are your attending physicians, yes." "Get them in here." "I've taken the liberty of notifying them already." "Good. Who are you then?" "I am Cain." "Okay. Are you a nurse then?" "I can act in that capacity." "Good. Can you help me out of this bed?" "I'm afraid you won't be able to move anywhere under your own power at the moment," Cain explained. "But we do have means for you to get around. Bear with me." Cain disappeared into another room for a moment and then emerged with an unusual device. It was in a compact form, but he could see it could unfold into 4 limbs. "What is that?" "Are you familiar with the concept of an exoskeleton frame?" "I've heard about them. Is this one?" "It is. If I can secure you into it, it should help provide you with enough support to keep you on your feet and allow you some limited movement," Cain elaborated. "You have to be careful with your movements as you are still very weak. Take it very slowly and we should be okay. If it gets me out of this bed, strap me in." Cain helped Carter to get upright, swinging his legs over the edge of the bed so he made contact with the floor. He could feel the carpet under his toes, which was a pleasing sensation. There was something odd about this nurse. His touch, whilst not exactly cold, had no warmth to it either. He seemed to be exactly room temperature. As he was reaching around him, it also appeared that he was not breathing either. He was sure there should be some expansion and contraction with his chest, but he couldn't detect any. Nor did he smell. It was Carter's experience that everyone had their own unique odor. Not many people talked about it, but people did always smell. Sometimes it was subtle or pleasant, and sometimes it was strong and pungent, but everyone had a smell. Everyone except for Cain, it seemed. Cain was gentle. Every movement and grasp were all perfectly gentle, with no awkward clasping or accidental groping. This also seemed a bit odd to Carter. Normally physical contact had at least one awkward moment when people got this close to each other. Once fully strapped into the frame, Cain stood in front of him and he held out his hands. "Now let's get you stood up," Cain offered. "Take my hands." Carter did feel a little awkward now, as social conditioning kicked in. Gingerly, he took Cain's hand and pulled himself up slowly. Whirring started to be heard as the fine motors kicked into gear, with his motion supporting his body. Even with this help, it was quite an effort to get upright, and he started sweating profusely. Good. Now let's get you over to the seat. I want to go a bit further than that, mate. Let's get you to the seat first. You're going to have to start small and work your way up. With a considerable amount of effort, Carter lifted his foot from the floor and started to move it. Even with the exoskeleton helping him, it was demanding work. He lowered his foot again and measured his progress. He'd barely moved any distance at all, and he was already soaking with sweat. All that effort, and all he'd done is move his foot around. This was going to be a bigger challenge than he had anticipated. It's okay, Mr. Vincent. Take your time. Another big effort saw him complete the turning motion. He was still a long way from the chair, and his original ambition had melted away. Right now, he would be pleased if he made it to the seat. Step by painful step, he continued his odyssey, panting as though he was running a marathon. His determination grew as he continued, growing ever more focused on the chair. With supreme triumph, he completed his voyage and collapsed into the chair in exultation. The exoskeleton bit into his lower back a little as he did so, but no matter. He achieved his goal. That was difficult, he sighed. That was quite impressive, Mr. Vincent. Why is it? Carter grasped with some suspicion. What do you mean? I'm not stupid. All these mobility problems suggest I've been immobile for some time, Carter observed. Have I been in a coma? In a sense, yes. How long? I'm afraid I'll have to let Dr. Takuma inform you of those details. Cain, it's never a good sign to say something like that. It's been a long time, hasn't it? Carter realized. Am I an old man now? He hadn't seen his reflection yet, so he couldn't confirm this, but he checked his arms. The skin seemed the same as it always had been, not saggy or loose-fitting like he expected. You're physiologically healthy, Mr. Vincent. Interesting choice of words there, Carter analyzed, shifting the focus to health rather than age. Then something struck him. Wait. Healthy? Carter stumbled over the words. I'm in a terminal case, mate. I should be brown bread. You're telling me I'm all healed now? Brown bread? Cain was confused. Brown bread, dead. Rhyming slang, Carter surmised succinctly with some irritation. Now I'm all tip-top. Your condition was not terminal. Dr. Takuma was able to repair the damage to your body and remove all of the malignancies. They've been telling me for years now that it was incurable. I've been in palliative care for a few months now. Now you're saying I'm not terminal? Carter was overjoyed, but rather confused. He did want to get up and dance and possibly punch Cain for being so vague. There was a brief alarm sound and Cain went to enter the door. Carter was facing away from the door and couldn't see who it was, but they soon moved to stand in front of him. He immediately recognized her as the Asian doctor he had witnessed during his last stint of consciousness. How are you doing, Mr. Vincent? She queried cheerfully. It's good to see you awaken out of bed. Oh, I'm all fine and dandy. I just don't understand how. I should be dead. Well, I do have answers for you, but there's a few things I need to prepare you for. I know I've been out of it for some time, Carter indicated, which is why getting from there to here was a marathon, if you pardon my French. Akari was a little thrown by some of the unusual phrases Carter was using. This is why you're keeping my family from me, isn't it? I've been in a coma so long my kids have grown up, haven't they? Carter realized. You're preparing the ground. In a way, you're right, Mr. Vincent, but it wasn't technically a coma. Carter thought about this carefully. Everything he had experienced was consistent with his coma theory, but now he was being told it wasn't a coma. Then he remembered the crazy idea that Karen had latched onto in the last few months. Carter realized. She only went and did it anyway. Did what? Akari was left confused by the outburst. The suspended animation thing, Carter raged. I told her not to waste the money on it. I don't know what burns me more, the fact she spent that money on me instead of the kids, or the fact that she was right. So you weren't aware you were going into stasis? We talked about it, me and my wife, but I thought the science was still pretty spurious, Carter revealed. Karen argued that there'd been some success, but I didn't think the success rate was anywhere near good enough to be viable. I don't think my condition would ever be something that could be cured, to be honest.
Well, the stasis worked, and we've been able to cure you.
Yeah, and I'm grateful for that. But how many years have I been out of it? Akari sighed. This was going to be the difficult bit. Carter Vincent had worked out he had been placed in stasis, but he wasn't aware of the time that had passed. He was expecting a few years. He was expecting his family to still be alive, if a little older. The next bit was going to crush him, as it did so many of the Resurrected.
I'm afraid this is where it gets difficult, Mr. Vincent. There's no way to soften this, so I'm just going to be blunt with you. I'm afraid you've been in stasis for longer than you think. It's been over 2,000 years since you were placed in stasis. You're now in what you would consider... What was it again, Cain?
This would be the 43rd century from your perspective, Mr. Vincent. Carter was stunned by the revelation. Cough, Carter responded, smiling as though it was some sort of elaborate hoax. 43rd century?
I'm afraid it's true,
Akari reiterated. No, Carter denied. That can't be true.
It's a normal reaction to go into denial, but we have to work together to try and counter that and try and prevent you from going into withdrawal.
Withdrawal?
As soon as you leave these quarters, you are going to be assaulted with a lot of sounds and images you will have no context for, and it can be enough to leave some people catatonic.
Oh, God. 2,000 years? Carter sobbed as the realization set in.
My family.
Akari sat in the arm of the chair Carter occupied and put her arm around him to comfort him. He started to weep uncontrollably as he thought of his family.
They're all dead,
he wailed.
My wife, my children, dead. Try not to think of it that way, Mr. Vincent, Akari consoled. You may have outlived them, but they probably lived rich and full lives. Your children grew up and had families of their own. Think of the lives they had, not the end of them.
Carter buried his head in his hands and wailed. He'd only spoken to his family around an hour ago, from his point of view. Now they were ancient history, as buried in the past as the pharaohs. He had been prepared for death, for the fact that he would have never seen his children grow up. He had grown used to the concept that it had been his time and that he would never see his beloved wife again. What he hadn't been prepared for was life. And yet, what did it change? For his family, the situation never did change. He was put in stasis and they got on with their lives, as they would have done anyway. The only thing that had changed from the situation that he'd accepted was that he'd been given an unexpected second chance at life. But it was still a life without his family. There had been a part of him that felt it would have been better if Karen had just let him die. But there was another part of him that was grateful that he wasn't dead, that the horrific pain of his condition was now behind him. There was a bone-deep sorrow for the loss of his family and a conflicting joy at being alive again.
This is just insane,
Carter finally expressed, wiping his tears away.
No one found a cure in all that time. The situation is a little more complicated than that, Akari explained. There's a whole lot of history you need to catch up on.
Am I still in London? Carter suddenly wondered. Does London still exist?
This is going to be another difficult thing to hear, Mr. Vincent. You're not even on Earth.
What? He stuttered. Not on Earth? Where am I then?
You're on the HDR Liberator, a military vessel that is part of the Republic Navy.
A vessel? Like a ship, you mean? Carter queried. A spaceship?
Yes.
This is too much. What am I doing in space?
Short answer, we don't know yet.
Well, where did you find me then?
We found you on an abandoned satellite that had been adrift for some time.
What was I doing on a satellite?
Like I said, we don't know yet.
I'm alive and not dead. My family all died thousands of years ago, and I'm in space. Carter laughed a hollow, almost maniacal laugh. You're worried about me being withdrawn? I'd be more concerned about my sanity.
It's a lot to take on board, I know.
I think that qualifies as the biggest understatement I've ever heard.
Yeah, you're right. It's not something any of us can understand, but it's not something we can reverse either, Akari reasoned. But you can adapt to the current situation. It will be difficult, but it can be done.
How can I adapt to this? One day at a time, Mr. Vincent, Cain answered. The only way you can do it. This is starting to sound like a victim support group. All I need is a few others to share my survivor stories with, Carter joked bleakly. Wait, were there others in stasis with me? Thousands. Where are they? Are they all in separate little apartments like this? Actually, you're the only one we've woken up. Why just me?
Your container was malfunctioning. We woke you up because we didn't want to risk the chance of losing you, Akari admitted. The others will be woken up in specialist care once we arrive at a suitable colony.
God, what were we doing in a satellite?
We can go through possibilities when we know more, Mr. Vincent. Let's not dwell on that too much at the moment.
Akari didn't want to broach the subject of Earth at this moment, if she could avoid it. Carter was in a psychologically traumatized condition already. No need to rub salt in the wound. So what do I do now? I woke up this morning an investment banker with a very short-term future. I closed my eyes for 5 minutes, and now I'm Buck Rogers. Who's Buck Rogers? Cain asked. Was he some kind of public figure? He was a little bit before my time, to be honest. So a historical figure, Cain mused. And his predicament was similar to the one you find yourself in now? In a manner of speaking, yes. And how did he cope with this predicament? Well, he struggled to cope, but he adapted and kicked ass along the way. So he was an inspirational figure for you, then? I hadn't really thought about it that way before, Carter smiled. But I guess so. Carter wasn't entirely sure if Cain was really this naive, or whether he was trying to play some mind game to try and distract him from his melancholy. Either way, he guessed it had some limited success. So what do I do now? Carter returned to his original subject. I've got absolutely nothing, I'm traumatized, and I'm in space.
Well, we are going to work with you to help you relearn how to walk for a start. We're also going to work on helping you adapt to the culture we live in now, Akari planned. Then we have to work on integrating you into a new life, hopefully find you a new vocation and get you into a position where you can function normally again, or as close to normal as possible.
Sounds like that would take a long time, Carter noted. Will you be transferring me across to someone else when we arrive at wherever you'll be taking the others to?
Well, that decision is largely up to you, Mr. Vincent. I would like to keep you here, if I can, mostly because I believe consistency is the best thing for you at the moment, Akari explained. You've just awakened in one strange environment. It won't do you any good to be exposed to another quite so soon. It'll take us a few days to empty the satellite and return the people to the nearest suitable colony, so you have a few days to make a decision at least.
Akari's argument made sense. He was pretty traumatized at the moment. He could recognize that. Keeping everything consistent sounded like a smart idea. Then he thought of something else. How am I going to pay for all this? Carter commented with stark realization. I guess the NHS is a thing of the past?
I don't know what the NHS is, but you were found in Republic space, so you are a Republic citizen and entitled to treatment under the Universal Healthcare Program. You won't need to pay anything now, but once we get you into a new vocation, a percentage of any money you earn will go to the program.
Sounds much the same. That's a relief, Carter sighed.
It's going to be a long, intensive process, Mr. Vincent, but we're going to get through it together, Akari commented. For now, try moving around the living quarters and try to get a bit more familiar with it. Cain will help you while I'm not around, but I can be contacted at any time if you need me.
How do I get in touch with you?
Many clothes now have communications built into them. Cain will show you how to operate them.
What about medication?
I want to do some more work on your biochemistry before I start you on any medication. We have some very effective treatments, but they often have to be tailored to the individual, Akari explained. I need to attend to my other duties now, but do contact me if you need any help. I'll come back and see you later.
Akari got up to leave and started making her way toward the door. Doctor!
Yes.
I didn't thank you.
For what?
For saving me life. Whatever you did, I feel better than I've done for years, Carter revealed. All that Buck Rogers, nothing you could have done about that, I guess. But thanks for saving me life.
It's what I do, Mr. Vincent.